We can't keep track of so many things. So what we really need to do is better empower our lower level leaders and our individuals
Yeah.
to make more informed talent decisions.
Okay. Most frontline managers probably don't spend a lot of time thinking about the larger talent management processes that are happening in their organization. As somebody who's been in HR for the last 10 years, it's been a pretty big part of my life. And sometimes I like to step back and think about, how did these processes come to be? Why are the standards of how we hire people, how we promote people, how we terminate them, where did those standards come from? And if you look at the history of corporations, what you find out is that a lot of the things we just take for granted today really come from the beginnings of the Industrial Revolution and the massive industrialization that happened, especially in the US during World War II. However, we live in a world today where a lot of these standard processes are starting to be questioned and really broken down. And so that's why I wanted to sit down with my guest today, Colonel Kris Saling. Now, Colonel Saling is a leader in the space of talent innovation. She's the director of innovation for Manpower and Reserve Affairs in the U.S. Army. We actually had to move the time of our meeting because she got stuck in a meeting at the Pentagon. She's written a book called Data Driven Talent Management, and it's all about the things that we talk about in this episode of how talent management is changing and what's that going to mean for leaders. If you are not in HR, you're a frontline manager, I really think this conversation will give you a lot more context for understanding some of the things that might be happening around you in the organization so that you can better understand that context in order to improve your team, hire better, retain top talent. I think it's a really valuable discussion. Before we get into the discussion, I do want to remind you that if this is your first time listening to the show, please subscribe so you never miss a future episode. It means so much to me. And if you happen to be someone who's responsible for developing leaders in your organization, I would love to talk to you. Please reach out to me at matt@bettereverydaystudios.com so we can figure out how to make your leaders better. With that, let's get into the discussion with Colonel Kris Saling. Kris, welcome to the Leadership Launchpad. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I know you had to hustle over here.
Oh my goodness, I have some demanding bosses.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm glad. I'm glad you were able to make it. I'm glad we were able to.
Thanks for being patient with me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm really excited to chat with you because you're doing some really interesting work inside talent development in the largest organization on the planet.
And one of the largest, most bureaucratic organizations on the planet.
Exactly right. But before we get to that, since I largely talk to a lot of the people who listen to this, they're relatively new leaders. They're people who maybe they don't have a ton of exposure to the bigger picture of like, what is talent management? And so I'd love to start by setting the stage of the context of where a lot of the traditional things that we think of as talent management in the corporate world came from.
Well, this is actually kind of fun considering what kind of revolutions we're seeing with AI technology and everything else right now. Because so much of what we do in talent management is tied to a technological revolution. So you want to think about what we started doing in like the Industrial Revolution with manufacturing. All of a sudden, we're not making these very bespoke pieces that are need-based. We are rolling out things at speed, which the military adopted, obviously, because we needed to put a lot of people into different positions very quickly. So as we're looking at that, you think of everything kind of on a machine cycle. Like old school talent management is, I bring you in, you have been recruited, you have been onboarded, you have been, had all your different widgets put on you, and you are sent off to the next person. You're sent to your job.
Yes.
And that just process repeats. Not a whole lot of feedback mechanisms coming back from, did that part work? Did it get, okay, somebody will tell me if I need to change how I'm making my part. But that part goes on, gets put on a machine, goes, matter of performance, gets retired. That's very much how we've started like the basic bits of talent management without the feedback loops, without the understanding of how these processes work together. Piece by piece, sequentially, not a system.
Okay, which makes sense to me because I always think it's in most organizations, there's a select few organizations where there's like a talent leader that is in charge of the whole talent life cycle. And so acquisition and development falls under kind of the same kind of umbrella.
Right.
vast majority of organizations, it sounds much more like what you're talking about, where there's the acquisition piece, you bring them in, you hand them off to the development. Never will the two talk.
You look at the Army. We have Army Recruiting Command.
Yeah.
They bring everybody in. Once they're in, they belong to Army Human Resources Command.
Yeah.
Then they depart, and there's a little bit of a handoff that goes to Veterans Affairs. There's a little bit of a handoff that goes to our Soldier for Life program, but it's very much you're going down that pipeline.
Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of the traditional elements of it. How's that breaking?
Well, we realize that we need those feedback loops.
Okay.
And look how fast skills are. We bring somebody in.
Yeah.
They used to be a widget that performed this set of tasks. Now, ever since the Industrial Revolution, we're seeing those tasks changing more and more rapidly.
Yeah.
You have talent development, you have learning management, you have learning and development, you have all these other offices that play a role in this that must evaluate how that part is brought in and how it goes through its cycle, and does it need to be refabbed? Does it need to be shaped? And I'm talking in terms of parts here, but when we have a person who comes in to fill a particular role, that role changes. Work evolves.
Yeah.
Work is evolving right now very quickly.
Yeah.
So how do I take that person and shape how they develop, and shape how they grow? If I'm looking at their utilization as they grow, am I making opportunities within my organization? Is there efficiencies to be gained there?
Yeah.
I mean, the obvious one is decision context. Like if you understand how your organization thinks, how it stores information, how it makes decisions, what the priorities are, that's hard to train.
Yeah.
That's something somebody only really picks up when they've been immersed in the company culture. Other things you can train. So as we're looking at how we revamp this, we don't want to just take somebody in, fit them into a widget and send them on their merry way. We want to figure out how we can continue developing them in that life cycle, how we bring them, promote them, put them in greater responsibility, bring them back if they've left, and then if we have to send them out, we send them out as an advocate.
Are some of the signals that you're seeing of the kind of the breakdown of this? I honestly don't know where those numbers are. What are retention numbers going down? Is there more turnover in the military over the last decade or so that's stemming from this from this lack of feedback loops?
Oh yeah, we're seeing this a lot in our digital spaces.
Okay.
Because our folks will come in with degrees, with credentials, with experience, working on very fast evolving platforms, and they'll find out very quickly that they're not maintaining proficiency. They've got skills they can use a whole lot better on the outside. So we can't just bring somebody in to be a cyber expert and move them along and have them stay a cyber expert. They have to be developed. They have to have their certifications.
Yeah.
So the technology is making it's breaking down some of those silos, but it's also just the large breadth and depth of skills that we want people to have.
Yeah.
Because, it's one thing when you came in, people had a number of different roles. Most of those were combat focused, or they were medics, or they were engineers. Now we're getting into the digital space. We're looking at space itself. We're looking at information operations. We're looking at data science and AI. We have to have levels of proficiency of these things throughout the force, because everybody at this point is using an AI tool. So I have to have kind of uniform AI literacy. The more this happens, the more I can't just come in and say, I'm going to bring in that one particular person, develop them in a certain way, and they will be there. Yea, verily, amen.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a couple parallels that I think I can draw, into the corporate world that I've seen. I remember a couple years ago, saw a very unscientific LinkedIn poll. had a lot of answers, so hey. And
it's like a focus group,
Yeah. And I forget exactly the question. I believe the question was something like, if you want to make more money, if you're ready to go to the next role in your profession, what are you likely to do? And it listed a couple options. And one option was, pursue a new role in my current company. And one was to pursue another company. And it was like a 10-to-1 split. Like everyone answered, oh, the only way to get ahead is to change companies. And it resonated with me. What you were saying is because the norm in the military and in a lot of organizations has been you bring somebody in, they put them in that role and then move on. It's kind of like, oh yeah, well, people aren't going to be really excited about that. And when they need to change, or when they think they desire change, then they're going to leave rather than move up.
Well, coming back to new leaders too, that's something they need to focus on when they're bringing in folks. You're developing them, and we're covetous as leaders. We got our great performers. We want to keep them.
Yes.
you can only keep them for so long.
Yes.
Those high
Yeah.
performers want to go perform. So unless you have a role for them to grow into,
Yeah.
you kind of have to set them up for that. I mean, that's an interview question of mine when I have people coming in. What can I do to set you up for your next role? And they kind of look at me funny.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, you're going to progress.
Yeah.
Because I'm bringing you in as this very energetic, high-speed person, you're going to want to do something next, and I want to be able to set you up for that.
Yeah.
So as leaders, we have to look at who we're bringing in, what they're going to learn from us.
Yeah.
And I like at least my folks to think about, especially looking in Army HR. Once my data scientists and my software developers figure out how Army HR works, I want to keep them in the space. So I want to find growth and developmental opportunities for them to leapfrog into, because our data sets they're messy. They're hard to understand. It's human data. It's complicated.
Yeah.
But if I get somebody who's got an understanding of that, I want to be able to keep them in the system, even if I don't keep them necessarily.
Yeah.
So we kind of have to be thinking about not just they're coming in to receive us and we hand them off to whatever's next. We have to strategically place what's next.
Yeah. And I think since not every organization is the size of the U.S. Army,
Yes.
I think one thing that a lot of managers have to do, like I think one thing that I've heard of is, you want to be a manager who people want to be from in some ways, and you can keep people in the system, even if they're in your system, even if they're leaving your organization, in that if you're doing it in a thoughtful way and you're promoting them and you're helping stay in touch with them, then they can come full cycle back to you. Because the truth is, I was actually just having this conversation at lunch with an IT professional, and they said, one of the challenges in the IT space is that especially for high performance, there's a lot of turnover because you have to stand up an IT stack and it takes a lot of work and you got to learn all these new skills. And it's there. Like, not every company is rebuilding their IT stack every 2 years.
I've made a startup. I sold it to corporate. I want to make a new startup.
Yeah. And so the high performers, they want to move on. And so a lot of managers, their first reaction to that is, oh no, how do I keep them? And the honest answer is sometimes you can't. Like, sometimes the right thing to do is to be having those open conversations, those feedback loops, so that you can at least plan for it and know how, have kind of an approximation of what's the cycle going to be like, of how often are people going to be leaving.
Right.
Yeah.
I love your point you brought up too about what managers do you want to be from, because that helps you pull in talent on the other end too.
Exactly.
People want to come work with you.
Exactly.
So you're going to pull in some very talented people. And if you gain that kind of a reputation for bringing them in, developing them a little bit, and then sending them off to do great things, then all the young up and comers want to come work with you.
Yeah, exactly. And the other piece that I heard from what you were saying was, because things are changing so much more quickly, it's just not possible to expect that you're going to hire somebody and they're going to be like good for a long period of time.
Right.
Is that you have to build in some amount of, okay, like there's going to be development, there's going to be new skill building, it's going to have to happen as part of this role.
Right. The tech changes so fast. I mean, everything that we thought was relevant. I mean, nobody wants to look back at what I did, even in 2010 in my complexity science degree. It's like some of the mathematical fundamentals are the same, but the applicability to what I'm doing right now, not so much.
Yeah.
So it's like, how are we going through and continuing that development, continuing that learning, and providing that learning for other folks?
Yeah.
Because what we did previously, there's some stuff that may still apply, but it's really going to be those additional experiences and certification that provide you with more insight to what somebody's doing. And they're going to learn a lot on the job.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
What are some of the things that you're seeing happening in the Army to transform traditional talent management? Like I know you're working a lot with, you're trying to pull in big data and doing a lot of work on the analytics, people analytics side of things. Like, what are some of the things that are happening?
Well, the fun part is we're trying to really democratize it, because right now our old model of talent management is, I manage my talent. I will put my people where I want them. Not so much. We can't keep track of so many things. So what we really need to do is better empower our lower level leaders and our individuals to make more informed talent decisions. So what we're trying to do is more assessments, more skills inventories, more gamified assessments, any number of different, choose your tool. There's so many out there, so that we can provide people a good understanding of where they are and what opportunities are out there they might not otherwise know about that they'd be a good fit for. And then, let them set some goal programs up. Here's the gap between you and your goal position. Here's some positions that might help. Here's some tuition assistance or credentialing assistance that might help. It's kind of a multi-effect tool, because we let people see where they might be good. We let leaders show people how they might develop, and we show them how to use benefits that We tell them all day they have these benefits. We give you credentials.
Yeah,
we give you
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay, great. How do I use it? Oh, I can use it for this.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
a light bulb goes on.
Yeah. That's tricky. And so one of the things I heard in there was kind of empowering those lower level leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Is that just so like you're opening up more tools for them? How's that?
Yeah.
That feels very different from when I was active duty.
Yes. Well, because I mean, as a young commander, if you have people and you have some open positions in there, and you want to see you got a couple critical ones. You want to see who's best fit. It'll let you see the people who are qualified in your formation, and be able to say, okay, give me that person, give me this one, not just because I like them,
Yeah.
or because they're motivated, or because all those things that we relied on you as a junior line leader in the Army to figure out through intuition and experience before. Now we've got a little bit more hard data for you. So now we can actually say, okay, not only do I like that person's work ethic and whatever, but they're also good at these things. They have, we look for proficiency, aptitude, and interest.
Okay.
And if somebody's got those things, it's going to be pretty easy merger.
Yeah. And then, of course, like in smaller organizations, there is a chance that a lot of that kind of grunt work is done by the manager of figuring out the performance, the aptitude, that kind of thing. So it's just a matter of kind of taking a moment to step back and decide, like, what are the critical things? What are the important things? So that we have to figure that out.
And how can I make that easier for you to make a more informed decision about where you're going to place people or develop them?
Yeah, interesting. Stepping back a little bit with all of your work in just kind of broader people analytics, what are some things that managers, maybe if I'm becoming a new manager, maybe I'm in a larger organization or a medium-sized organization, what are some of the things that I should maybe be turning to HR to ask about? Because I think that's something that doesn't happen a lot. You know, we go to HR for because there's a problem, I want to terminate somebody, or you go to a recruiting team when you want to hire.
Very transactional stuff.
Very transactional. What are some of the data sets or things that people can be talking about? Maybe, let's be honest, maybe the HR team doesn't have them, but what can they be asking for?
Well, if you're starting to look at HR with the integration of people analytics and talent management, you can look at hiring trends, you can look at attrition trends, and you can look at it at a more finite level by skill. I like looking at where are we bringing in people from and then where are they going? I mean, even if your recruiting teams and your HR teams have prior history, have resume information, have whatever else, and they've digitized it. It's like we're pulling in a lot of talent from X organization. And that's always fun for me, because especially in the Army, it's like, how am I poaching from, these very talented organizations to bring in, especially my civilian hires? I learned a lot just from talking to small startups who are able to hire and poach from large organizations. It's like, oh, you guys aren't offering as much. You guys aren't offering, how are you getting them? What is your in?
How were they? What were their answers?
Oh, it's all about the value proposition.
Okay.
It's what kind of problems are people able to work on.
Interesting.
It's especially for our data folks, it's very purpose driven.
Interesting.
It's like they will take a pay cut to come work on hard problems.
Oh, yeah.
That one for us is kind of it's a given because we're the government, but they're going to come do it. And that's what a lot of our small startups said. It's just like they want to work on hard problems, and they want to they want that time value. So that's another thing that we're trying to do with technology is figure out where people's core, that core work is being done, and eliminate or automate a lot of the rest. Like if I had the Army never have to fill out some of the forms we have to fill out. It's like, let's get rid of that.
Dude.
That needs to go away. We have that data somewhere in a system. Hey, I just onboarded somebody. They need access to these 3 systems. I'm not filling out 3 separate forms. When they onboard, I'm going to go click, 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 system. They have access.
Exactly.
So, but I mean, I think with that, for HR trends, it's like, as they're onboarding people, where are they going? And what processes are coming in? Where are they screwing up those processes? Because that's kind of, I use a thing called Gay-Hendricks Pyramid.
Okay.
He wrote about it in his book, The Big Leap, but it starts off at the top. It's your zone of genius. That everybody likes to feel like they have a zone of genius. This is the thing you're uniquely good at. It's kind of your core work role. At the bottom, under that, there's a zone of excellence, stuff you're sort of good at, but it's not really your main core function. Zone of competence, the stuff you can do is just like you can do it, but is that necessarily the purpose for you? And then the zone of incompetence.
Okay.
So looking at it from an HR perspective, like how much am I making my people live in that bottom layer? It's the toil, it's the meetings, it's the forms, it's the onboarding, it's the training. It's like, and where can we kind of elevate them into the upper level?
Interesting, because as you talk through that,
It was kind of circuitous. I went in a couple
no, but
different
this is
angles.
great because I think really for the whole conversation, what I'm hearing is there's changes happening on multiple levels. There's both we're changing the machine of talent development and what that looks like and where things go, but then we also have to think about how we think about the pieces that are in that machine.
Yeah.
So the machine itself is becoming, we need much more feedback loops. It needs to be much more dynamic. It needs to develop people throughout their career and make sure talent acquisition is talking to talent development and consider people moving jobs and all. So much more complicated and complex machine. And then, whereas we used to in the initial machine when we created it, we thought of people as just like parts on the machine.
Right.
And
You're hiring them into a role.
yeah,
And that's your role.
yeah.
But now within the role, there's modules of work we're evolving. So we're now thinking about the work.
Yeah, and we need to think about you as a person.
Yes.
If we want to get you into this machine, we need to have a value proposition.
You need to be motivated.
You need to be motivated. All that stuff is what's going to actually make it effective. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, because a lot of it too, it's not necessarily the scientific, it's more the art from the Army side. It's like we look at a lot of the things people have to do and they're not glamorous. They're dirty, they're rough.
Yeah.
So we look at people and go, okay, you're tired, you've been through all this. What makes you want to do this? Because we've all had to self-lead to some extent. And like, this is gross. This is a task I really don't want to do. How do I make myself want to do it? And then how do I make other people want to do it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we want those high performers to come in, do the work, want to succeed, want to go on, I mean, there's that whole layer of, we've been calling it in the Army side, we've been calling it informed preference.
Okay.
So we kind of look at what people want to do, what kind of things interest them or grab them, and then we provide them as much information as we can about how they do more of that.
Yeah.
Whether or not they're good at it.
Yeah.
You know, other things they might be good at and might like doing.
Yeah.
And just kind of shape them that way.
Interesting. So what are some of the things that what are some of the changes that you're most excited about?
A lot of it is that we're looking at not just how many of what type, but who. I mean, I say that a lot. It's like you're looking at this whole entity of a person and who that person is at scale. Because that's where the data lets us go. Let's go to that at scale. The other is I now have, I mean, this is after years of data literacy training and data work. I sat down, one of the meetings I sat down today was with my G1, a lieutenant general, infantry his whole career, a division commander, asking how we can integrate more AI into our systems to provide a better soldier customer experience. And I'm just sitting there going, okay, we've reached this. This is my nirvana for the moment. It's like I've got my leaders asking these questions. They want to resource this type of work. So that to me is exciting.
Yeah.
We're at a point where we can really make some changes and make this less toil, give people the kind of work experiences that they're looking for, the service experiences that they're looking for. That to me is extremely exciting.
Yeah, it's, and I think that's, again, kind of the pinnacle of this change in how we're viewing the people at the highest level. Like at the manager level, you need to be doing this so that you're really developing your folks and figuring out what they care about. But then same thing at the highest level, all the way looking down, it's just like the basic, like, how do we respect these people's time? That's really what it comes down to.
Right. This person's paying for daycare. This person has come here on travel orders. This person could be doing such and such other things, but they have elected to serve. So how do I clear the way of everything else but the service?
Yeah, yeah. And I think for leaders, it's really important. I know for me, it was maybe easy for me to assume answers to that based on how I would answer that. I think it's really important to make sure you're asking your people, like, why are you here? Whether it's in the military or some startup or what caused you to join, because it gives you really important information about, okay, what matters to you? Are you incentivized by having a Friday off, or do you want free lunches, or do like whatever it is? Yeah.
Do they want the beanbag chairs? I mean, sometimes people
do. They just want hard work? Do they just want to, and that's probably the pinnacle of it, of like what everybody's going to say is like they want meaningful projects.
That's been a lot of the teams that I have. They want to work hard. They want to play hard. They don't need a whole lot of trappings. They want a network that works.
Yeah.
They want computers that they don't want to throw against the wall.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's having those conversations and a combination of the honest leader conversations and the digital collection, the pulse surveys, the little checks, all the different systems you can put in there so that somebody can provide feedback Because you're going to get different answers either way. I mean, a good manager is going to get very similar answers. A person's going to be honest out there and say, hey, this thing sucks.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, it was one of the things too, talking to the G1, he said he walked into a few situations where nobody ever complained about anything that was bad because the prior leader didn't want to hear about it or would blow up about it. And then he never found out anything that was wrong. So sessions like this, and like, let's talk about what's wrong with whatever it is. And you have to be that manager who's willing to say that, hey, we do a lot of things well. Let's talk about the things that aren't going well.
Yeah.
And if we don't know about them, you're not diming anybody out. We just can't fix them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's the human element that is become the most important part of human resources.
Yeah. It's weird how that works.
I know. It's ironic.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this has been great. I think we gave people a good summary of kind of like the high level of like what's happening, what talent management is, where it comes from, how it's changing. Because the truth is, for any leader, especially as you rise as a leader, talent management becomes a bigger and bigger part of your role. Your book is
Data-driven talent management.
So how does that play into this? Like, who should read that book? When should you read that book?
So I wrote this book really for people who had been in the position I'd been in, who were starting up new data programs, new people analytics programs, new talent management programs, and we're kind of looking for ways to get started, a framework, and why should I do this?
Yeah.
It's like, so it's the folks who are trying to stand up new programs, or at least trying to kind of figure out those programs, how to bring data into everything they're doing from talent management to standard HR. It's for the person who wants to say, hey, look, this is the kind of system we need to build. And this is kind of how to do it. And those higher level leaders too, who are sitting there going, I just want to understand a little bit about why we're doing this. Because we take a lot of the constructs in there, break them down, try to make them as accessible as possible. It was actually, one of my bosses had tasked me to write a white paper about everything that we had done to stand up people analytics and talent management in the Army. And I'm sitting there dumping like years worth of research into this thing going, I don't want to write this. This is a white paper. And a friend of mine who'd written several books, he goes, don't write a white paper. Just write a book.
Write a book.
Make it, tell the story the way you want to tell the story. And make it a book. So I'm like, okay, I did. So data-driven talent management is how we started people analytics in the Army. But it's told a little bit of a how-to, a little bit of background story, a lot of pop culture references, because I'd rather talk about Marvel characters than this company did this. And I think from the people perspective, because you look at these ensembles of characters and you care about each of the characters. They all have something that they're contributing to this overall team. To me, that construct made it more important to look at all of the individual superpowers that were coming in and not just a faceless corporate entity. So that's where we came from with that one.
Excellent. Well, I mean, I feel like that's the summation of what this transition is all about, going from a machine to a personality.
How many to who?
Yeah, I love that.
It's been our watchword.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's been great having you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you are looking for help turning your organization's great engineers into great managers, me and my team at Better Everyday Studios would love to help. We deliver targeted and interactive training workshops that are designed to help build the 3 fundamental skills of any new manager: building trust, giving feedback, and setting goals. Reach out to me through matt@bettereverydaystudios.com so we can start making your organization better every day.